doctor, engineer, or an abomination to your family. So that's something that we have to deal with. We have no option technically, especially being in America. We have family looking back at us for help, so we have to be accomplished to make our parents proud and our name matters.
Yeah, I would say there's similarities, of course, of how we were all brought up, Black American, African, or whatever case may be. I just think the pressure is different. That's mainly what I think. I think the pressure is just a little different because of how our parents came and grew and had to go through. And I think, not to say that to discredit anyone else's struggles and their parents, but what they had to go through to get to this point. And when they got here, what they had to get through to get us to this point. You know, it's just a lot more pressure on them.
I guess everything he said I agree with, but it's just different struggles. You know, because my grandma grew up in the South, so she went through segregation. Different from, I guess, immigrated. I'm not sure what was going on in Africa back then. So I feel like everything they said could apply to everyone in this room. And I think the only cultural differences would be like, well, there's way more, but I feel like it'd be like food and where we grew up and the people we're surrounded by. So I feel like we could have the same values.
Do you feel like we have the same values, like as a diaspora, like as Black people? Do we share the same value system, or does it depend on where you live?
I hope we all want success.
I mean, I think to a certain extent we do share the same values, but to a certain extent, do we pursue our values? I think, do we pursue those values that we share? Like, I think the immigrants that's directly from Africa want success. I think the West Indies want success. I think the Black American also wants success. But when the Black immigrants specifically come here, they go after the success more harder than in my opinion, than the Black American that was born here. They don't go after those successes like we do. When we come, first of all, our parents had some of our parents had to restart all over back at point zero, right? Some students that I know, including me, does not get financial aid. Some student doesn't get certain privileges from the system because they are Black immigrants. But yet they pursue these values because they know at the end of the day success is the goal. They have to go after success. But to me, like in my opinion, the Black immigrant, not the Black immigrant, the Black American that was born here, I think to a certain extent, yes, there is the Caucasian people that's putting barriers after barriers after barriers, and to a certain extent, I think the Black immigrants also face those same barriers too. So that's why when some people say they're using it as it's not an excuse, but sometimes it's used as an excuse. All Black people face the same barriers, but yet each and every one of us want the success. The Black American that was born here, or using, some of them at least, are using the barriers as an excuse to not overheard, or sometimes you have to go over people to get what you want. And to me, the Black American need to start going over people to get what they want. Just like when the Black immigrants come here, wait. I know you're gonna add something. Just like when the Black immigrants come here, right? There's barriers, there's stuff they have to go through, but they refuse to accept certain things and go through with it. Like, have you ever seen like a Black immigrant going to like a hospital or an office, and the lady refused to give them what they want? They will keep on pursuing and pursuing, not cursing them out in a respectful way. They will keep on filing those papers over and again. But I've seen it myself. The Black Americans, once they tell them no, they take that piece of paper. Oh, I don't need them anyway. Yes, you do need them to a certain extent.
All I can say is, when you said how you said speaking for Carribeans, they go with different ways.
Sorry, I'm not speaking for the Caribbean.
You're speaking for yourself, but you saw that. But I'm saying, I guess I could say the same success as you say you go for it harder, or you go to success, you try harder or something. I forget what you said. But there was a time where Black people were like, they would sell crack to their own parents for success, which is pretty crazy. And I feel like that's pretty extreme. They were trying to be successful, and that's pretty, to be put in a situation how that's the only way you can get money, would tell you how desperate they are for the success, that they're willing to just put themselves ahead. That's the most aggressive thing ever.
Okay, regarding the drug thing, are we referring back to like the 60s?
Oh, just anything. I'm saying that's 80s.
Huh?
That's like the 80s.
Okay, so you're referring to the 80s, how they had to
today.
Today, the 80s to today, how they had to sell drugs to their own brands. Yes, I know that's happening. I'm not discrediting that doesn't happen, right? So, my thing is, as you selling these drugs and stuff, you're selling the one people. Yes, I understand. You gotta make money. You gotta survive. The Black American gotta survive. But as you make this money, like even if you're making it illegally, do you actually take to say something? At a certain point, you have to say enough is enough. Okay. We all have our own option. We all have a choice. At a certain point, you have to say enough is enough.
I don't think you have an option if that's you're doing it.
Yes,
I feel to that point. I mean, like you said yourself, we're going to talk about like the 80s and crack. Like these are like long-lasting effects. It didn't just stop in the 80s and then like that was just it. Like it was like that was like the height of it, and then here comes the other nonsense that came with it. There was like tons and tons of it. Like black fathers being taken out of homes, communities being destroyed and ravaged. So like when you're saying that black Americans don't go after certain things hard enough, like you have to remember that like you said, the barriers themselves, those barriers, again, some people, I'm not saying all, some people may use things as excuses. It happens, not just in black culture. Anyone can do the same thing. But I think you're failing to like remember that these barriers are here, like and black and like I speak for the African Americans, like a lot of the things that we're like quarter like seen as like to be successful is either you're a rapper or you're a drug dealer or you're like you're playing athletics, that's the things that like are seen as important. Okay. I feel as if like if you were to take all the racism away, all the defunding of schools and like having communities be like in the way they were, you would like give them black people a fair shot at like education and things like that. I feel as if like they wouldn't be so centered on one thing and then having a whole bunch of avenues to explore and to like have these opportunities. The same way that you can, like I said before, the culture is like what's also important. You have to have values, you have the morals. These things have to drive you. And the immigrants that come over here, they have a driving force because, like I said, the slogan of America is the land of opportunity. So they think that everyone that coming over here, they think, okay, what are all these black people are not doing anything? Like with this land opportunity, we're able to like go ahead and advance their lives. But you have to remember that there are like things that are preset to all these black people that live in these different parts of the United States that are like held back by these things. So I feel as if when you're saying things like that, you have to remember that these effects lasted to today. They didn't just stop at one point. Like everyone is affected in some sort of way, and like the focus of like what we view as important, not as like like as the people in power they place for us, like what we view as important, like athletics, rapping and all that other stuff. Yeah.
So what you saying, like you mentioned something regarding like throughout the country, right? Mm-hmm. How I don't know if I recall, but what I'm saying, I'm not saying that the struggle from the 80s or the 90s are not still here. We can clearly see that they're still here. I can clearly see that they're still here. What I'm saying is, I noticed that you mentioned rappers, you mentioned other people. I understand most rappers, they came from the bottom to get up. But at a certain point, when do you have enough people that's making a certain amount of money to start rapping and start really investing? Huh? When do you start having when do you start having the black American going after stuff they don't need? Like the other day I mentioned, I'm sure there's a lot of disagreement, right?
Wait, Carl, let me just get to everybody to that.
I think what we're seeing right now is the importance of how immigrants view opportunity, how other people can view opportunity.
Yeah.
So to them, he said athletics, trapping, or making music, right? You say that to an immigrant, and they're like, "What are you talking about?"
But I think that's more so because traditionally, maybe those were the outlets that they had.
Right.
So to see something and say like, "Oh, I'm watching this happen," to hear stories about a crack epidemic is very different than living and going through it and then passing down that intergenerational trauma. So I think that's kind of like the mistake that people make, is that something happens to your parents and then as children you just forget it. It really does affect kind of how you see and go through the world. But,
you know, you see Black Americans come here, like they just stop, like they don't do much more. But honestly, it's like cyclic. The cycle doesn't stop. It continues and continues, and it's embedded in our system so deep that it's never going to escape a lot of us by the time we're dead. It's going to probably be passed on to our kids and our grandchildren. So with saying that, I just think, I don't know, it's just, yeah.
I can see what you're saying, like the trauma, like the generational trauma. I don't necessarily like it's not excuses entirely. It's something subconscious.
Well, like I didn't
it's not intention. I know.
I didn't say it's excuses entirely.
And then
just to
I understand. And he aided your cause. You know, like he gave it some. He opened it. You know, he enlightened it. It's something unintentional that the Black American will experience when they endure something. It's reason why is because like just I mean based off of the media, what we were saying, the entertainment and dancing or sports or anything like that, the Black American will see that as their culture in a sense, because I mean, as you know, some Black people who said they don't know that their history, their lineage, they'll consider Black as their culture. That's the Black being Black is the only culture where you can say Black pride, Black culture. You can't say white culture. You can't say white culture. There's no white culture. So no, straight up. Being Black is the only exception to having that pride, that culture, you know. But when you're coming from a different country, from the continent of Africa, from the Caribbean, then you're more closer, you're more aligned to your culture. It's closer in that spectrum of you as an individual. So it's definitely the media that's causing these people who don't have the not the clearest sense of their Black identity to go navigate through these routes. And plus, there's the only oppression in other countries is just class status. There's no race oppression. Maybe there is the fact of colorism.
There is colorism.
Yeah. We'll get into
colorism.
It's class status.
I feel like I do agree with what you guys have to say, but Africans are still recovering from colonialism. We still have conversations that we're not having. There are a lot of people who do not talk about colorism. We still have to deal with corruption that was caused by white supremacy. We still have to deal with like our culture was stripped from us. We had to be assimilated after the white people came to Africa. Our traditional practices were antagonized, like it's almost like they demonized our traditional practices to impose that Western culture on us. We still do go through we're still recovering from colonialism. We're behind in Africa. Development-wise, there are still Westerners coming to our country, taking our resources, taking a whole bunch of things from us. There's still slavery in Africa, child labor. There's still lack of access to health. So when we come into this country, we are not. That's what we want to be successful because of what we had to experience in our country too, and it's still happening today. So we do have our struggle that we go through.
I think that there's no denying of struggle. Well, even just checking on Africa, the point, Africa is the only continent where we group everything together, and I think it's noticeable because it strips everybody of their own individuality itself. And going on to it, like even the oppression you go through, like within each country, like I remember doing a report on the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is one of the most corrupt governments. Like it's in the hard work and the want to be successful, like coming to America that strips you of your mental health. Like a lot of our families have terrible mental health. Like they need therapy, but they don't know that because all their strivings, like you guys are like, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor. You have, like I know that, but that is not good for our mental well-being. That's one of the things white people have stripped of us. That's one thing slavery stripped of us. It stripped of us our mental well-being. Another thing going into it, kind of touched on the lazy Black American stereotype. And that itself is problematic because Black people do a lot. Black Americans specifically strive a lot. Talking about Black fathers are actually in the lives of their children more than white fathers. A lot of people don't know that, but it's because of the stereotype we have of being lazy. Now, everything starts in the household. I know this because my neighbors are terrible parents, and I see the effects on their children like directly, and it's so weird because I want to get out of a scholarly attitude, But I see that because I got a 7-year-old neighbor who sexually harassed my friend by catcalling her, basically. And I'm just like, yo, what the hell? But that's because of the parenting style. There are lazy Jamaicans. I know this because when I go to Jamaica, I know that people are lazy. There's lazy people in every country. The problem is when we group everybody there and say, these people are lazy, this is why you're not getting ahead. And one final point on just Black Americans and the barriers. We really cannot understate how much white supremacy, like, there has not been a longevity of just freedom. And we can't say Black people have made, okay, we've made strides, but we cannot say it's good enough where you're stepping off of our necks. This election, the past election in 2016, let's just take voter suppression as one of the big issues. The fact that we're still fighting for fair voting laws shows you the type of hardship we have to go through. And they do it specifically because they know, hey, these people have to work at this time to this time. And they're poor. They're not going to take away a paycheck just to vote. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really have to get away from the fact, like, Americans have to get away, because I know American kids, and probably anybody could relate to this, American kids go off of this stereotype that Africans are lazy, which are very untrue. They go off of this stereotype growing up that Black Americans are lazy, and sometimes you can, like Josh said, subconsciously you can take that in, because you're not taught anything. You're taught to be a rapper, singer, athlete, whatever, because that's the only thing you see, unless you like.
That's a good thing to explore.
Yeah.
What were you guys taught? What were you guys taught about African Americans? Both in Africa and African.
I've never heard the Africans are lazy ones, so I think that's interesting.
The African booty scratcher, that's a stereotype.
No, I mean like Africans are lazy.
Oh.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one before.
That
but
was
like,
a big
I'm gonna be honest, like being told sometimes like that's like don't want to be like them.
Yeah.
That's what you say. Like, you don't want to be like them. That's what he says. I'm like, what you mean? And then I have to think about it. I'm like, what is he talking about? Because then all he sees is he thinks about the lazy Black rapper, the guy who sells drugs, the guy who plays basketball, and that's the way his way out. You know what I mean? And he's like, don't be like them. And that's how I think. I'm like, there's more than that. There's so much more than that. So it's always interesting to hear about the lazy Black Americans.
I would have to say, especially for immigrants that like just come here, well, Africans, I can speak on Africans because I'm African. They tend to have this like perception of Black Americans. It's kind of how like white people see Black people. Yeah. It's so strange. It's kind of like they're thugs, they're this, they're that. Like literally what the media portrays to white people, to other white people, is how Africans who just come here think that. So it's like, do you think that's what's the word? That's like from I would say.
I mean, who makes the media? That's
I mean, the media have their own fault. We can blame the media all we want, but to add what you said, that the Black immigrants, when they come here, they really view the Black American as a thug. I can just say yes, that is a fact that most Black immigrants, when they come here, they really have their own preconceived notion about the Black American. Is it true? Is it all true? No. In every group, there's always that little minority that caused something to become a stereotypes. But if my parents were to come to me, well, my parents have never said such a thing. Since I was in Haiti, they never wanted me to hang out as a kid with other people except stay in school anyway, right? So when I come here, they didn't want me to have friends in the first place. So so first of all, I'm serious. Like after school, I have to go straight back home. So if I'm going to school, I've had Black Americans friends in high school. I have Black American friends. But when I first came here, I went straight to 8th grade. The first thing he was Black American, but he was Haitian. The first way they welcomed me at the end of the school, this Puerto Rican kid smacking my head. This Black American, he's also Haitian. I consider him Black American because of the culture. Not that he's not Haitian, but the culture-wise, he didn't identify with it. Yeah, he doesn't affiliate with him. He come, boom, same thing. I was like, what the heck? Like since that day, I was really pissed off. So when I see that, when he did that, the first thing I noticed, his pants was under. No, I'm talking about the stereotype in general on how it's registered on my mind. No, you have to understand. No, you have to understand where I'm coming from. So, at first I never. And Haiti was already something that was bad, right? When I come here, and then you smack me in my head, the first thing I see, your pants is under your butt. The way you talk, when you're in class, you don't respect the teachers. So, and you did that to me, and I turn around. When your pants is under your butt, you walk in a certain way, you talk in a certain way. The first thing I'm thinking, okay, you a thug. So from that day on, anybody that I see on the street with their pants under their butt that's doing the wrong thing, you are a thug. But if I see a black American that's doing what he's supposed to do to make success, even though he or she keep having fallback, I can't take of him as a thug. I'm thinking of someone that's trying to be successful, and there's a system that's holding them back. So we have to make the difference. They're all black American thugs. They're all immigrant thugs. And they're all successful immigrant and black American thugs. But generally, we can say that there are more black American thugs than the immigrant thugs. We can say, if we have to be honest, listen, if we have to be honest, he's shaking, no. He's shaking, like, no, it is perfectly, no. Wait, let me finish. No, let me finish. You can disagree, which is fine. Like, we are sitting here to have a conversation. You can disagree with what I'm saying, or you can agree. It is perfectly fine whether you agree or not. But what I'm saying is, if you see in it, if you not being biased or subconscious about something, you can clearly see what is going on. If you go to an African community or a West Indies community or whatever black immigrant community you go into, and you go to a black American community, I bet you if you put 10 black immigrants, 10 black Americans, and you put them together and you don't tell them anything. You go into this community and you writing on a piece of paper, you're making a stat. You'll come up that you find more black American thugs than black immigrant thugs. There's gonna be thugs on both sides, but you're gonna come up with this section. You can. No. I have a question.
Do you who's like first generation? You're first generation. Why did your parents leave their country?
Like struggling, suffering from
how'd that happen?
It's colonialism and like
corruption.
Poverty.
You left your country because of criminals.
Yes.
Not criminals. Corruption.
Poverty causes
You left the area to come here.
Corruption is the main thing. Like anything that's legal is corruption. Yes, corruption is right.
For criminals. They call us criminals? I don't get it.
No.
I have something to say.
What was he saying? He was saying something. I didn't hear it.
Criminals create corruption.
Yes.
Correct. So you left your country.
No.
Corruption is illegal.
There are factors like the political leaders can apply corruption as well. External countries.
What's thug? What are we saying is thug? We're saying like a robber?
No, let him.
That's what I'm saying. What's he saying? Thug. He said. What's the asking us to find thugs?
I said there's thugs on.
I know. What do you mean by thug?
Okay, this is who I perceive as a thug, right? I will tell you who I perceive as a thug. I perceive as if you paying thousands of dollars, like there's thugs in the government. We can say that, like but I'm gonna keep it within the black community, right? If your parents sent you to school, you disrespecting the teachers, you annoying other students, you bullying other students, you dressing a certain way, and what I mean by dressing a certain way is like you walking in front of people, and all of a sudden I have to see your drawers. You come into school, you smelling high. That is not like by the way, you can smoke all you want, but that's a certain way when you going into people, you go in a certain way. These are the people that are considered as tough. But no, I was answering the question. Let me answer the question.
That's very subjective.
No, that is not subjective. That is objective. He asked. No. No. I'm not like. I'm not. No, wait.
Let me bring it back.
No, I'm gonna let you bring it back, Abby. But I'm not. No, I don't want you guys. No, I don't want you guys to sit here to think I'm saying it just to say. I'm saying something that I've seen with my own eyes. I'm saying because I'm answering his question. You gotta let me answer his question. If I'm answering, you gotta let me answer his question. The people that I see as a thug is like if we keep it a school base, is the students that is in school that is not going to class, that is not doing like if except the mental issue. We can put that aside. If you have mental issues and something else, and there's stuff going in your house, that's different. But I'm thinking about that. There's certain people that have nothing wrong with them. They just choose to be a certain way. We have.
It's not the response. It's actually what he meant.
Yeah.
Okay. Based on my experience, I feel like some African Americans, I'm not gonna generalize everybody, I feel like you guys see these things as like a flex, like being gangsters and stuff. I see on social media, these rappers, they're like bragging about being gangsters, they have guns in your hand, and these are things a lot of...
Okay, so
It's everywhere.
what you're saying, I think what you're saying is there's like a slight difference with these rappers, because they're growing up in a community where there are all these things, so that's all they're gonna rap about. That I understand, but to add to the rapper part, like at a certain point, you have a certain amount of money in your hand. I think it's your responsibility to add people that have financial literacy and other things around you, so you can get away from the night. That's all I want to add to that.
I think it's a fair thing to point out that not all rappers talk about those things.
Yes.
Rappers that talk about those things become famous because that's what white society wants to promote about black people. But Jordan? Oh, Maddie?
Yeah. I don't know, because you're talking about like, you know, at a certain point you have enough money to get that, but that kind of feeds into this whole like myth of meritocracy. Like we don't like just build up off of that. It's like, okay, myth of meritocracy is like the idea of like you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just keep it pushing. But like I said, this is a cycle. People feed into it, and not only feed into it, but they're stuck in it. So when we talk about people walking around with guns and doing all that, like that's all they know, and that's what only people feel comfortable being around sometimes. And kind of stemming out from them, and like you get this image when you try to leave, like, you know, you're a thug, you're this, you're that. They're not able to ever leave that image because people are constantly imposing on them when you see it.
I think the biggest problem with like some of the arguments is that like when we're building what we think of as criminal or thug, we're building it with the lens and view of white supremacy, what people think. I don't think we'll get to the bottom of like realizing what we see as criminal, wrong, and whatever until like you're able to like just bash that out of your mind. Because if you see a person with their pants sagging, and you think that they're improper or ghetto or whatever, you might think that's your idea or whatever, but that's constructed through white supremacy and society and whatnot. Same thing goes for like.
Can I
add a small point? I went to Central High School, right? I've talked to, it's not like I come here and just say things. I talk to people like